The elders sat in their sconces, chittering over the forthcoming exercise. The eldest of the Night Guild stepped out and went up to the podium. He touched the microphone and looked around at his fellow scribbler elders. Are there any more objections that should be addressed? The elders each in turn shook their heads. He looked out over the lowery floor. Then send him in. 2 guards at the far door pulled levers and the doors swung open. A smooth-skinned, newly hatched knight walked across the stone floor, stopping in front of a smooth sheet of metal hanging from chains. He looked up over the metal at the eldest knight. The eldest at the podium made eye contact and clapped his fingertips. Sandofine? The young scribbler bowed his head. Good, Sandofine. I am to understand you subscribe to the knights upon your first cycle and have already gone through the halls of leadership. This correct? Sandofine lifted his head up. Yes, your highnesses. The eldest looked around the sconces and back out at the young knight. You have been selected for a mission. It is a high-risk, top-secret task. If you are caught or found, your mission will be denied for the sake of the colony. Is this acceptable? Sandofine nodded. Yes, I accept for the colony. Good. The eldest waved his hand toward the ceiling. Above, 2 guards walked the circular path with chains in hand. The smooth plate of metal turned, revealing a glyph to Sandofine. The younger looked upon it, letting the designs imprint on his mind. He was going to take a hunting party of cat riders out into the misty halls. They will be given a special lance designed to inject a material into a squishy. The party is then to follow and document the affected squishy for the duration of the party's life. The syringe lance is to be disposed of in a designated Kawaru forge. All largers are to be avoided. Sandofine looked up at the eldest. I understand. When shall I lead the hunt? The eldest put his mouth closer to the microphone. Straight away. Sandofine led the pack, riding upon a mottled pink and black tom. 4 generations had ridden this cat, and it took riders well. He waved the lance, motioning his second to take a flanking position around the sides of the running squishies. He then waved the lance in a circular motion for the other 4 cat riders to circle around and pull out an older, larger one of the herd. The scribblers rode as commanded, flanking and circling, isolating the designated squishy. Sandofine rode up beside it, sticking the lance into the exposed ass of the beast. Instantly, with the force of the puncture, the fluid in the lance erupted into the visible juices inside the creature. Sandofine pulled the lance free and handed it off to his second. Then the pack of cat riders pulled back into the mist, watching. The squishy danced a bit, trying to nuzzle the point of pain with his mouthless head. He wobbled a bit, and then ran off toward its herd. The second disappeared into the vents, tasked with disposal of the lance. The rest tapped at their cats, moving them slowly just out range of the herd. Light! The light feels nice. The squishy stood in the middle of the herd, large enough to nudge the smaller ones out of the way. It wiggled, enjoying the heat from the light up above. It moved its nubby feet into the floor, stretching and feeling the squishy ground. It didn't recall feeling before, but it felt the dewy drops of mist accumulating on its skin. It looked around, noticing the herd for the first time. It saw them just as it was, each standing, focusing their eyes up at the lights. It looked around at the high walls rising up out of the mist, creating the great valleys. It tilted its head, focusing an eye down the long valley. It could see another herd of creatures like itself. In the same moment it could see behind, noticing the colorful creatures pacing in the distance. It didn't know what they were, but they brought a memory of pain. The squishy looked down at its rump, noticing a dot. The colorful creatures had things on their back, things that made its rump hurt. The squishy made a decision and pushed through the herd. It reached the head and took off running through the mist toward the other herd of squishies. The colorful creatures started moving forward to follow. The squishy moved through the herd, hiding. It rotated its head, always keeping an eye back on the following pack of predators. Their eyes followed it. It moved through the pack they followed. Primordial fears rose up through its jelly. They brought pain. It didn't like pain. It leaned over, tapping other members of the herd. They would wave their necks and heads, but otherwise were unresponsive to its pleas. The dread kept rising up through its skin. It shivered, watching them pace back and forth in the mist. It looked up at the warm lights above. The heat and nutrition didn't help assuage the fear. It had to do something. It had to act. It looked at another large squishy standing to its right. It kicked, pushing it into another. Kicks rolled through the herd. Some reared up. The newly intelligent squishy took another action. It started running, pushing the one in front of it. One by one, the herd started galloping. They ran through the mist, an unknown panic urging them forward. It took the lead of the herd and led them through the misty valley. A giant appeared up ahead. It stood on 3 towering legs, moving slowly in a circular manner through the valley. The squishy led the herd around the feet, and the herd split and recombined as it passed the giant. It kept an eye on its pursuers. As they saw the giant, they ducked into a mist-shrouded opening. It quickened its pace, taking the opportunity to escape. The herd followed. The valley divided up ahead into 3 other paths. The squishy turned to the right. Again the herd followed suit. The 100 squishies charged onwards through the mist, eventually erupting into dry air filled with giants. Fear flooded its mind. All around, giants stepped and moved. It ran one way, then had to dodge back. The herd was frantic, balling up. Giant creatures with numerous legs approached. They reached down, pulling up members of the herd. The squishy watched as its fellows disappeared, bite by bite, into mandibled mouths. It darted back and forth, dodging giant claws. The herd of 40 dwindled, 30, 20, then 10. It looked around, spying a dark valley, and ran for cover. The squishy made it, alone but alive. It hid behind a cold bit of stone, watching. Its herd disappeared into the giants' mouths. Across the expanse of giants, the colorful predators that had hurt it watched. They watched as it did, eyeing the giants eat the herd. It backed up slowly, disappearing into the dark. The squishy's jelly-filled feet were silent in the corridor as it walked. Still, its footsteps were heard. It saw a dim light far ahead and made its way to it. It paused, trying to gain warmth, but the light was too cold. It shivered alone, scared. Then the darkness moved. A giant row of teeth and predatory eyes stared down at it. The mouth opened, revealing a mass of leg-like protrusions. The squishy felt the coldness of terror, freezing its body in place. Rather than give in, though, it focused itself. A single thought rolled through its newly fledged mind. Run. The squishy rushed under the titanic creature, maneuvering around its plethora of legs. 2 other giants stood on the other side, unaware of the little jelly creature. They were communicating, touching their tentacled faces to one another. Their slimy bodies were a singular tendril covered in some sort of loose red skin. The squishy didn't care, it just ran. It ran past them, away from the guardian behind it, and through the newly opened door into an unknown misty valley. This new valley was warmer, wetter, but the lights were weaker. It found one far from the giants and sat, absorbing the energy. A giant walked past it and then paused. The squishy was too tired to run again, too worn out. The giant hagfish studied the squishy for a moment, and then reached up into the sky. The light strengthened. The squishy felt its warmth seep through its skin, and fell into a slumber. It woke several times to see the giant tentacle-faced creatures standing over it, watching. They didn't molest it, but just watched. In time, the squishy felt odd. Nubs started growing on its back. It looked at them as it sat in the light, watching tiny mirrors of its old herd coming into being. It looked up at the giants as one reached down with its face. A tentacle gently patted one of the nubs on its back. It spoke in a series of hisses at the squishy. Another giant approached and laid down a stone full of water. It looked up at the giants, hesitant. It walked over and touched a foot into the pool. It looked up at the creatures as it touched the water again. They didn't move, and the moisture was pleasant. The squishy didn't hold back. It jumped into the water dish and swam around, soaking up the fluids. The hagfish hissed in glee as they watched their new pet. Sandalphine returned before the eldest. It had been several cycles now, and a new eldest of knights stood above him. The middle-aged scribbler lowered his head before the elders. "I have come to report the mission a failure, elders. The test subject escaped the misty halls and was eaten." The eldest sighed and looked around at his fellows. "Shall we give up or try again?" The eldest lawyer raised a hand, speaking up. "No. It was a test for the new UCLI. The manipulation was supposed to give the squishy a brain. If it had worked, it wouldn't have been eaten so easily." The eldest nurseman rose up and spoke. "No, that is wrong to conclude. Odd for a lawyer to jump to such a falsity. The cephalopod brains are delicious as well as intelligent, but they are not sapient. They are caught and eaten just as easily as squishies. I say we try again." The eldest knight smiled, rows of teeth around the sconces. "I agree. The UCLI has said science must be tested repeatedly to be proven true or false. We must test again. To have a source of such brain would benefit the colony." The elders bowed in unison. "For the colony." The eldest knight looked back at Sandalphine. "We will outfit you with 4 new lances. You will ready your pack, as well as 3 other packs. We will conduct the test 4 more times. Again you will be on your own in the mists. Do not let the largers eat them this time." Sandalphine bowed before the elders. "Yes, elders." Spitzlittle was shouting into her comms when Sam walked into the monitoring room. "Everything all right?" he asked. She spun around, looking at him with her head tilted. "No, nothing is all right." She walked over and poked him with the middle fingers of all 4 hands. "This idiotic project of yours is driving me crazy!" Sam laughed, patting her on the shoulder. He walked over to the monitors. "What's the issue?" Spitzlittle waved her hands at all the monitors. "This! All of it!" "Look, you imbecile." Sam went from one screen to the next. A legion of Infinigan were busy working on numerous tracks, machines, and wiring. He paused, staring at a room of 8 pulsing pods. He pointed. That them? Spitzlittle bobbed her head. Yeah. So far 8 have remained viable, but they're picky. Power input has to maintain a steady current, all while their appetite for metal is increasing. My crews are having to rush resources down there. The Kawaru can't keep up. Well, guess we will have to increase the freighters coming in. We have to get them fed. Spitzlittle tilted her head deeper. Our infrastructure is top of the line, and yet we just can't get the resources into these things. It's not possible. Not with the size of the transport lines, not with the limit on current, and not with 8 of them. Sam looked at the young life ships. So what are you saying? I am saying you have 8 starving ships that are going to die. Sam looked her in the eyes. What's the solution? Spitzlittle stepped closer to him, leaning her head into his abdomen. You're going to have to pick one, Sam. Sam shook his head. No. Shit. He put his hand on her back. There any other way? She looked at the monitors. No. Maybe if we had known, we could have built individual bays on opposite ends of Twain. But no, it's too late. They can't be moved or they'll die, and they're all competing for resources. All right, I'll get with the brains then. Sam was behind his desk mixing himself an Irish coffee when the holodesk buzzed. Sam looked over at it. Everyone is present, a young orbit said. Sam walked around to his large leather chair and sat down. He touched the comm button and activated the meeting. Hello, everyone. Cami, Curator, Novacor, Erebus, Zamudans, Aralang, the Gree of Twain, the Preserver, Moed the Wobbler, and Rima de Cali all replied back with various hellos. First off, I want to thank all of you for your contributions to this project. Sam waited for a moment. The reason, as you are all probably aware, the reason for this group chat is we are having logistics issues keeping all 8 of the ships alive and growing. Cami spoke up. I brought up earlier objections about having them centralized as they are. Sam put up a hand. I remember. I also remember we decided to house them where they are for security concerns. We had a valid reason to put them there. Cami shook her head. You still don't trust me. I get that. But if you would have listened, we would have 8 healthy ships growing right now. Sam waved it off. Past is the past. I talked with Spitzlittle. They're going to die due to starvation, and we have one viable option. The Aralang spoke up. We will have to choose one. Sam nodded, as did many others in the Holo conference. Any ideas on how to pick one? Sam asked. Novacor shifted a bit. Well, they're all keeping pace with one another at the moment. One is slightly more aggressive, processing resources better, but marginally. The ocean grower, Zamudans, slowly closed and opened his eye. Are we going to be basing our criteria on how gluttonous the creature is? They have rudimentary sentience. I think we should talk to them. Test their rational capabilities, base it on that. Sam looked at everyone in the meeting, blinking. What? They're already sentient? Holy crap. Shit. The Gree of Twain spoke up, looking over at Zamudans. The ships have significant Gree DNA in them. They are functionally rational upon hatching, aren't they? The Preserver bobbed in place. They are, but they also have Gallic, Rima, and Star Angel components in them as well. That and a few million other contributions, but those are minor. The Preserver pivoted in spot, focusing each of his 3 eyes around his room. One refocused on the meeting. Yes, the computational crystal component is there as well. These creatures are already far more advanced in capabilities than most Clouder denizens. Even in their gestational state, they are more cognizant than you or I, Sam. Sam rested his head in his hands, staring at the desk. He listened to his chest whirring continuously as he thought. Shit, so we have intelligent hybrid creatures in there that know they are starving. Do you think they know what they are? Curator shook her head. No, I've been watching over them. Their data input has been limited thus far. They are bioluminescent and communicating with one another, though. Their language is developing as they process their surroundings, but it is still rudimentary without input from the outside. Sam looked up at the meeting. Do they know they are alive? Curator nodded. Most definitely. They talk about philosophy extensively. Sam leaned his head back. God! The concept has arisen with them, Curator replied. They refer to the Creator often and question their own source. Sam looked over at her. Do they talk about the resources then? Are they actually starving or just slowed due to our inability to supply the metals and minerals quick enough? Curator nodded. They're starving. They talk about the pain of life frequently and being hungry. All of their vitals are indicating they are self-cannibalizing in an attempt to facilitate further growth. Sam looked over at the Preserver. Can they be paused? Saved somehow? The Preserver looked in several directions, avoiding Sam's eyes. No. You wanted them to grow as quickly as possible, so they are growing as quickly as possible. I didn't put any limiters or pause points in their code. Cami smiled. What do you think, Mr. Insight? The Aralong, sitting next to the fire with his 3 dragons, looked over at the meeting. I think Sam needs to go down and make a choice. Sam groaned. Fuck. All right. He drank his coffee down and stood up. Curator, you mind coming down with me to translate? She nodded. Sam stepped through the automatic sliding doors into the massive ship bay. 8 large organic orbs pulsated around hoses running into their tops. He walked out onto the catwalk. Large black spheres on the nearest pivoted, tracking him. Lights flickered from one to another, and more black eyes focused on him. Curator walked up behind him. He raised a hand up. Curator flashed a series of colors in her eyes at them. Sam looked at each of the 8 young life ships. Hello, I'm Sam Clemens. I need to talk to all of you. Sam stepped up to the railing, lowering his head. I envisioned a ship, a mother of worlds, something that by its own nature set about developing worlds, spreading life. I had a team design you, create you 8 here. We set you about to growing, but I made some errors. Sam looked up at them. I figured safety would be the primary concern. So I had your development started here in this bay, at the heart of this station. Others raised some concerns, logistics, growth rates, whatever. I wasn't smart enough to understand. I wanted you safe. I wanted you protected. I didn't listen. And now you 8 are starving because we lack the capabilities to funnel enough materials down here quick enough. We can't move you because of your power needs either. The worst thing is, you are all smart enough to understand everything I'm saying. Curator flashed the message across, and within moments the 8 life ship larvae were chittering amongst themselves. Then the one in the back flashed lights at Curator. Curator nodded and looked at Sam. They say they understand. Sam shrugged, looking at her. Understand what? All of it. The entire dilemma. They've gone over the math a while ago. They knew it was coming, Curator replied. They know? Curator nodded, and then pointed at the one in the back. They took a vote and it was unanimous. That one is to be the survivor. Sam looked at it, meeting its large orb-like eyes. What made them decide on it? Your words. Sam looked at Curator. My words. Yes. You want a mother of worlds, that is their purpose. That one in the back has purposefully been limiting its own intake so its siblings would have more food. After I gave them the definition of mother, they all agreed that one has been doing what it could to help them grow. That one has the required personality to be what you wish them to be. Sam looked at them, his eyes tearing up. I didn't want any of you to die. I didn't mean for this to happen. Curator put a hand on his shoulder as they flashed back at him. They know. Sam watched as the larvae started forcing the wires and tubes out of their tops. As the wires were forced out, their skin stopped moving, and their flashing lights dimmed. Curator leaned into him. Spitzlittle is sending her teams to move the feed lines over to the survivor. Sam leaned back into her. He looked over at the last life ship. I'm sorry. She flickered lights back at them. She says she understands and that her siblings won't be forgotten. She wishes to birth 100 worlds in each of their honors. I hope she does. Sam waved at her and started back toward the door. Sam sat in his office drinking another Irish coffee. A holographic red butterfly flickered from his wrist data slate over his hands. He kept trying to touch it when his office door opened. Sam looked over as Moed slowly wobbled in. Hey Moed, he said and sat up. Moed took the necessary time to cross the room as Sam watched, and then stopped in front of his desk. Hello, Sam Clemens. My people and I have been communicating with the Aralang. I wanted to thank you again for bringing the eye to the station. You're welcome, Sam said, leaning back in his chair. Did you want a drink or anything? The wobbler waved off the offer with one of its 4 large armored hands. No, such poisons are not needed. I wanted to express my condolences, as you are impacted with death far more so than my people. Your AI have been tutoring us in human culture. Orbit has instructed me that the death of the life ships will have a negative impact on your emotions. Sam smiled at him. Thank you for worrying about me. I'll be all right. Yes, I am sure you will be. But I have also been told that moving around the station at pace helps you regain your neutral mind state. Would you like to move around the station with me? Sam laughed. You want to go on a jog with me? Moed pointed at him. Yes, that is the term I wish to do with you. I have instructions to increase our morale with your species, as well as the once subservient Great Arm species. I wish to jog with you. Sam sat up. It is a good idea, but you know you're slow, right? Moed stared at him from under his heavy carapace. Speed is not necessarily a good thing, Sam laughed. All right, let's go for a stroll then. The two kept pace as they went down the halls. Where do you want to go? Sam asked. You are the reason for this endeavor. You chose the destination, Moed said as he teetered forward. Sam led them down the main concourse of the first sphere. Moed looked around at the multitudes of sapients going in and out of stores and restaurants. Moed looked up at Sam. Is this helping? Sam looked over at a group of grazer children eating snow cones. Yes, I think it is. Good. I am glad I am helping. Sam led them down a dark alley. Out of a dark corner, a set of pointed limbs extended. The grotesque distortion of Shineless's face appeared into the light. Mode stopped and Sam stopped. Sam raised his hand up for the Guardian to smell. It extended its mandibles, tasting his scent. "I wish audience with the hags," Sam said. The Guardian retreated into the dark, allowing them to continue toward the door. Mode looked up at Sam. "I dislike those things." Sam looked down at him. "It can hear you. I'd keep shit like that to yourself." He looked back up and rang the door. 3 hagfish in red cloaks stood in the way as the door opened. They stared down at Moed. The middle one looked over at Sam. "What brings you by Sam?" Sam shrugged. "The Wobblers want to improve relations, so we came by to chit-chat, say hi." The hagfish stared at him for a moment. "Hi." Sam laughed. "Can we come in?" "Do you want to come in? Is that a chit-chat?" it asked. Sam nodded. "Yeah. Chit-chat is a conversation. We all sit down and talk about current events. Build morale with each other." The 3 hagfish moved aside. "Come in, Sam and Moed. We will chit and chat." They led them across the misty room over to an alcove with seats. Several smaller hagfish without cloaks were coiled in the corners. Sam laughed as he watched a herd of small squishies crawling over them. He pointed. "Playing with your food?" All around him, hagfish hissed. Sam looked over at the 3 leading him over to the seats. "I'm sorry. What did I say wrong?" The larger speaker for the hagfish sat in a middle seat. It pointed with its tail for Sam and Moed to get comfortable. "Look, Sam," it said. Sam looked, watching the squishies play on the naked hags. "Yeah, they're playing." The leader looked over at Moed. "Your race is known for its intelligence. You led us for eons. Do you see anything out of the ordinary?" "Squishies don't play. Those ones appear to have an organ in their head bulb, a mind maybe. Did you alter them?" The hagfish leader shook its head deliberately. "No, we did not, but someone did. They are smart, playful, innocent. We enjoy them." Sam nodded. "They're pets to you then?" The hagfish bobbed its head up and down slowly. "Yes, they are our pets. They are in danger." Sam looked around. "What are they in danger of?" "Scribblers have been breaking into our halls. We have found several of our friends beheaded. We are not happy." Sam sat up straighter. "Oh, that is a big deal." Moed looked over at the squishies. "You are going to attempt retribution then?" The hagfish nodded, as did several of its fellows. "We are allowed to kill trespassers. We will start killing the scribblers. They are small and delicious. They will learn to stay out of our halls." Sam shut his eyes for a moment. Moed shifted his weight. "Yes, that seems efficient. That will teach them rather quickly to leave your properties alone." Sam shook his head, lifting up a hand slightly. "Wow." He laughed. "I thought you two would be having the issues." Sam laughed again. "All right, the scribblers are capable of discussing things. They obviously have something to do with these altered squishies. So we will talk it out. I'll get them involved, get you guys involved, and we will figure out what is going on." Moed stared at him. "That is a lot of trouble. You need to rest and recuperate, don't you?" Sam looked over at him. "How am I going to rest when these 2 peoples are going to be fighting soon?" Moed looked over at the hagfish leader. "They are larger, they will win. The scribblers will learn quickly to stay out of their territories. It is easy fix, why are you concerned?" Sam groaned. "I'll get the orbits on it. In fighting like this needs addressed before it escalates." Moed blinked a few times. "You truly do think differently, Sam. I will have to relay this back to my people. I will most likely get research funding due to this." "What?" Sam asked. The hagfish leader raised its tail. "You are a curiosity, Sam. You always do things a difficult way. But you usually turn out correct. It is quite odd." He shrugged. "Whatever, just don't hurt any scribblers. I'll talk to them and see why they are after these squishies. Everyone understand?" He looked around at the tribe of hagfish. Each in turn made eye contact with him, nodding with a hiss. "Good. I don't need infighting." Moed lowered his shell down to the ground, pulled out a display console, and started typing. "This is magnificent, just as the Aralong mentioned. Peacemaker." Sam shut his eyes again and forced a sigh.